New York on Christmas Eve is a symphony of light and sound. Skyscrapers shimmered as if gilded in gold and silver, reflecting the myriad colors of decorative lights. Fifth Avenue buzzed with people, the jingling bells of street vendors blending with Christmas music echoing from luxurious stores. The scent of roasted chestnuts, warm coffee, and fresh pine mingled in the biting cold air, creating a feeling that was both hurried and strangely peaceful. But for Catherine, Kate Sterling, it was all just a vibrant painting she observed from the outside. Sitting in a sleek black Mercedes, waiting for the chauffeur to open the door in front of a five-star hotel lobby, Kate skimmed the headlines of a gleaming financial newspaper. Her face, already sharp with delicate features and perfectly coiffed golden hair, now had an added coolness, a distant air. At 38, Kate was the powerful CEO of Sterling Holdings, an international financial conglomerate. She was a symbol of success, of record-breaking numbers and bold decisions. Her world was luxurious boardrooms, where the scent of leather and important papers always prevailed, where every word had to be carefully weighed. Every glance held a hidden calculation. Tonight, after the company's annual Christmas party, an extravagant but empty affair, Kate decided to carve out a rare moment for herself. She usually didn't. Her schedule was planned down to the minute, every moment dedicated to work, to maintaining the empire she had painstakingly built. Perhaps only Christmas could make Kate allow herself a little freedom. She asked her chauffeur to drive to Central Park, wanting to breathe some fresh air to let the city's hum somewhat drown out the echoes of her own loneliness within. Snow had begun to fall lightly, casting a thin veil over the ancient trees and paved pathways. Kate, draped in an expensive cream cashmere coat, her high heels replaced with tall snow boots, walked slowly. She watched families holding hands, children giggling as they pulled sleds, the sound of a brass band playing Silent Night echoing somewhere. Everything seemed enveloped in a warm glow, except Kate. She felt like a glass sculpture, transparent, sharp, yet capable of shattering with the slightest touch. In her designer handbag, beneath a silk scarf and a leather notebook, lay a Christmas card from the board of directors. The pre-printed message was simple: "Thank you for leading us through another record-breaking year." No handwritten note, no personal wish. Just another soulless symbol of success. Lost in these meandering thoughts, a tiny clear voice, like the chime of a wind bell, suddenly cut through Kate's inner stillness. "I don't have a mommy. Can I have a day with you, please, ma'am?" Kate started looking down. A tiny girl, perhaps no more than 3, stood before her. She wore a faded, worn red puffer coat that had clearly seen many winters. A small hand in a frayed wool mitten clutched an old teddy bear, her big brown eyes watery but sparkling with hope. Tiny snowflakes rested on her long eyelashes, still as held breath. Kate frowned, her instinct making her look around, unsure about this strange request. Her gaze landed a few feet away, where a man stood. He was still, his eyes fixed. His jacket was worn, his boots caked with snow, but his posture held no desperation. It exuded protection, calm waiting. Their eyes met. His were warm, holding a quiet strength. There was weariness there, yes, but also an undeniable tenderness when he looked at the little girl standing at Kate's feet. Slowly, Kate turned back to the child. Her voice, usually cold and polished from years of executive meetings, softened unexpectedly, surprising even herself. "What's your name, sweetie?" "Lily," the girl whispered. "I just want to know what it feels like to hold a mommy's hand, just for today." The words pierced Kate like a knife hitting a place so deep it ached. Kate swallowed hard, her breath turning to mist in the cold air. She looked down at her gloved hand, then slowly reached out. "Because it's Christmas, maybe we both deserve a little joy today." Lily's face lit up. Her tiny hand slid into Kate's, as if it had belonged there all along. The man now close enough for Kate to see the tired lines around his eyes, the snowflakes caught in his scruffy beard. He knelt beside the little girl and gently brushed the snow from his daughter's hood. "She's not usually this bold," he said, looking up at Kate. "But I guess today, she just had to ask." Kate nodded, her throat inexplicably tight. "She's very brave." "And so is her dad," he responded simply. There was no bitterness in his tone, just truth. No further explanation, no apology for their sudden intrusion into her world, just a quiet gratitude that she hadn't turned away. The park around them hummed with life. Children darted past in puffy coats. Parents laughed as they pulled sleds across icy paths. A brass band was playing Silent Night near the entrance where twinkling lights wrapped around soaring pine trees. Everywhere the world seemed enveloped in warmth, except Kate. Until now. She was still impeccably dressed, as always, her luxurious cashmere coat draped casually over her shoulders, her high heels only recently traded for snow boots. Her golden hair flawlessly coiffed framed a face that had graced magazine covers and Forbes profiles. But beneath it all, she felt like glass sharp, transparent, and always a second away from shattering. And here in a small-town park, a little girl had just given her more human connection than she'd felt in a decade. "Would you two like to walk with me for a bit?" Kate asked cautiously. Lily beamed, nodding enthusiastically. The man whose name was David paused, searching Kate's eyes for something. Then, with the smallest smile, he said, "She'd love that." And so they walked. An improbable trio in the world's eyes. A millionaire CEO, a man who smelled faintly of sawdust and cold wind. And a little girl with holes in her mittens, but a heart bigger than the starry sky. But for them in that moment, it felt like something that could heal them all. The snow crunched softly under Kate's boots as she slowly made her way through the park. Lily's tiny hand nestled in hers. The little girl swung their clasped hands with delight, her red coat a bright splash of joy against the winter white. David followed behind, keeping a respectful distance, never too close to intrude, but never too far to stop watching. His eyes were always on Lily, with the steady warmth of a lighthouse in the dark. Kate occasionally glanced back. Each time David simply nodded, calm and reassuring, as if quietly reminding her, "She's okay, she's in good hands." They stopped at a wooden ice cream cart. The vendor laughed, saying the cold weather never stopped kids from wanting sweets. Kate knelt down. "What flavor do you like, sweetie?" "Vanilla," Lily said, her voice shy. "With sprinkles, please." "Vanilla it is." Kate smiled, handing over a crisp bill, then turned back to Lily. "So tell me something about you." Lily's cheeks puffed out as she licked her cone. "Daddy makes toys out of wood. He made me a rocking horse and a dragon." "A dragon?" Kate chuckled, genuinely surprised. "Yes. It doesn't breathe fire, but it guards my bed." Lily giggled. "And Daddy tells me stories every night, but he's not very good at princess ones. He doesn't know how to do princess hair." Kate's laughter rang out like bells. "Oh, maybe I could try sometime. I've read a lot of fairy tales." "Really?" Lily's eyes lit up. "Like Cinderella?" "Cinderella, Rapunzel, even the Little Match Girl," Kate nodded. "I like the Little Match Girl," Lily whispered, her voice sadder. "But she was cold." Kate paused. She looked down at the child and gently brushed the snowflakes from her hood. "Well then, let's make today warm, okay?" Lily nodded. They walked past stalls filled with gingerbread and handmade scarves. Kate bought the little girl a small snow globe, a tiny town swirling with glitter when shaken. Lily clutched it to her chest like a treasure. David watched from the sidelines, his arms loosely crossed, his breath forming soft clouds in the winter air. When Lily turned to find him, he smiled and gave a gentle wave. She smiled back before scurrying back to Kate's side. And just like that, the invisible thread between all three of them tightened further. They took a selfie together in front of a giant snowman. Kate knelt down to Lily's level cheek to cheek, and for a brief moment she forgot about boardrooms' charts and the echoing silence of her high-rise penthouse. Then the moment came. In the heart of the park, a towering Christmas tree glowed with thousands of golden lights, each bulb dancing like tiny stars. Kate knelt beside Lily, helping her reach for a bell-shaped ornament hanging low. Lily hesitated, then leaned close to Kate's ear and whispered, "You're as warm as I always imagined Mommy would be." The world went silent. Kate stood motionless, not from the cold, but from the weight of that honest, gentle statement. Something deep inside her cracked open a place she had long sealed with resignation and grief. She had once dreamed of a child. She had imagined lullabies, messy kitchens, sleepy bedtime hugs. But life and its cruel twists had told her she wasn't meant for that. Yet here a tiny girl, not hers, not planned, spoke the words she had yearned to hear, not from just anyone, but now from what felt like the most important heart. Kate wrapped her arms tightly around Lily. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for letting me be your mommy today." Behind them, David slowly approached, sensing the moment, but not disturbing it. He sat down on a stone bench beside them, snow gently dusting his sleeves. Kate turned to him, her voice low and emotional. "You've raised an angel." David smiled faintly, his eyes still on Lily. "She raised me first." They sat in silence for a while, sipping hot chocolate from a nearby vendor. The cup warmed Kate's hands, but it was the presence of the little girl on her lap and the quiet man beside her that warmed something far deeper. For the first time in years, Kate felt not powerful, not successful, but present and real. The bus hissed softly as it pulled to a stop on the snowy street. Kate stood by the small stone bench near the stop, her hands deep in her coat pockets, watching Lily clutch David's hand. "I had fun today," Lily beamed, looking up at Kate. "You're the best mommy I've ever had, even if it's just for now." Kate smiled, her heart aching with a strange warmth. She knelt to Lily's level and tucked a stray hair behind her ear. "Thank you for letting me be that for you." As David prepared to board the bus with Lily, Kate hesitated. Her voice was smaller than usual, uncertain, almost shy. Could I see her again?" David paused, glancing at Lily, who tugged on his sleeve with a pleading look. His face softened. "If it makes her smile, I could never say no." 3 days later, they stood before a tall townhouse on the edge of the city. Modern glass framed a world away from the worn apartment David and Lily called home. He awkwardly adjusted his flannel collar, shifting his weight as Kate opened the door. "Come in," she said gently. "You're not guests. You're invited." Inside it was pristine yet far from cold. Soft lights, wood floors, the smell of cinnamon, and something warm baking. Lily clapped her hands in delight. "Smells like cookies." Kate laughed and led her into the kitchen. "That's because we're making cookies." David stood at the threshold, unsure. Everything was too clean, too quiet, too different. But then he saw Lily, her tiny hands mixing batter in a bowl flour, dusting her nose, and his shoulders relaxed. Kate offered him coffee, not espresso or imported blends, just regular coffee in a plain mug. "I hope this is okay." He took it, nodding. "Perfect." Each visit to Kate's home felt more natural. Kate never tried to impress. She didn't turn on excessive dazzling lights or display expensive art. Instead, she simply focused on making a connection. She allowed Lily more freedom in her apartment. The little girl got to decorate cookies doodle on the whiteboard in Kate's private office. a space once reserved only for the most complex financial projects. Lily even got to climb onto Kate's lap during Zoom meetings, her tiny giggles occasionally filtering through the microphone, causing executives on the other end to raise their eyebrows in surprise. For Kate, those moments were more precious than any multi-million-dollar contract. Lily had become a warm ray of sunshine seeping into Kate's otherwise cold life. She brought innocence, laughter, and an unconditional need for love that Kate had longed for, even if she wouldn't admit it to herself. And David? Though still reserved, he began to open up more. He no longer kept the polite distance he initially had. While Lily was busy with Kate, David would sit in the kitchen sipping the coffee Kate brewed and talk about his woodworking. Rough pieces of timber transformed into intricate toys or unique furniture. He talked about the books he enjoyed reading, about the simple dreams he once harbored before his life revolved entirely around diapers and bills. He didn't say much, but every word he spoke was genuine and held a depth that surprised Kate. He wasn't like the men in her world. No expensive cufflinks, no corporate arrogance, just simply a man who could build a swing set with his bare hands, who remembered how Lily liked her oatmeal, and who fixed a leaky faucet without making a performance of it. And he was kind, quiet, but profoundly kind. One evening, after Lily had fallen asleep on the sofa, clutching the teddy bear Kate had found in the attic, David stepped out onto the balcony. City lights twinkled in the distance like shimmering stars. Kate followed, gently draping a soft wool blanket over his shoulders. "She's a beautiful child," she murmured. "She's everything." David replied, his eyes still on the horizon. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Kate turned, her voice uncertain. "She's not your biological daughter, is she?" David didn't answer immediately. He looked down, his fingers tightening around his coffee mug. "No, not by blood." He looked back at Kate, his voice steady but laden with meaning. "But by every beat of my heart." The statement hung in the air between them like something sacred. Kate said nothing. She didn't need to. She just reached out and gently touched his hand. For the very first time. No words, just a silent acknowledgement of a truth they both were beginning to feel. They weren't just visitors in each other's lives anymore. Something was shifting. Something profoundly real. The snow had fallen heavily that night. It was the kind of snow that silenced every sound, enveloping the world in quiet. David had just returned home from a late shift, fixing a broken porch when he saw it. A small wicker basket resting silently on his doorstep. He froze. Inside was a baby, tiny, wrapped in a faded pink blanket with a bear embroidered on the corner. There was no name tag, no letter, no indication of who had left her, just a single sheet of lined paper, the ink slightly blurred by snowflakes. "Please don't hate her." He stood there for minutes, motionless, looking into the baby's eyes. They were wide blue as frost and unblinking. David didn't know how to hold a baby. He'd never changed a diaper, never warmed a bottle. But there was something in that gaze, calm and haunting, that made turning away impossible. He carried her inside. That night, and many nights after, was a blurry succession of crying, pacing, Googling how to sterilize bottles at 3 a.m. and dozing off in a chair. He sold most of the little he owned. Quit his full-time job at the hardware store, started taking odd jobs, fixing gutters, patching walls, mowing lawns, just enough to pay rent and buy formula. But the little girl never lacked for love. Every night he read fairy tales until she fell asleep clinging to his finger, as if it were the only anchor she had. When she cried, he hummed old songs he barely remembered. And when she took her first wobbly steps, he cried more than she did when she fell. He named her Lily. Not because it meant anything special, just because it felt like hope. Sitting across from him now, Kate listened in silence. They were in her kitchen, Lily fast asleep upstairs. The gentle warmth from the oven made the room feel smaller, more intimate. David told the story simply as if sharing a memory that needed no embellishment. "I was terrified," he admitted. "But I couldn't leave her there. I just couldn't." Kate murmured, "Why didn't you call Child Protective Services?" David gave a soft smile, though his eyes didn't. "Because I wasn't her best option, just the only one who didn't walk away." The room grew quiet. Kate stared at him, her mouth slightly ajar but no words escaping. Her fingers tightened around the rim of her mug. Then, almost unconsciously, she said, "When I was 27, I thought I was going to be a mother." David looked up. She continued, her voice low even. "I was in love, or I thought I was. He said he wanted a future. Said all the right things." She paused, swallowing hard. "We heard the heartbeat at 12 weeks. I cried. I'd never felt such joy. But by 16 weeks, I had complications. The ER, cold hands. And then a doctor with kind eyes told me it would likely be difficult, almost impossible for me to carry a pregnancy again." David said nothing. He just listened. Kate kept her gaze fixed on the surface of her black tea. "He left. Said it was too much. Said I should focus on healing." She gave a short, humorless laugh. "He meant he didn't want the burden of loving someone who couldn't give him a child." There was silence again, not awkward, but profound, like two people finally revealing their scars. "I never really cried," Kate said, finally looking up. "Because Catherine Sterling doesn't cry. Not in boardrooms, not in hospitals, not even in the dark." David looked at her. Her face was calm, elegant, but her eyes... "Her eyes are breaking," she murmured. "It's not that I'm alone. It's that no one ever stayed long enough to see the parts I tried to hide." And there in that kitchen, amidst the falling snow and the distant tick of a clock, something shifted. He didn't reach for her hand. Didn't say anything grand. He just looked at her with eyes that held no pity, no questions, only understanding. And for the first time in a very, very long time, Kate didn't feel like she had to be strong. She just had to be herself. The days flowed gently, and something in Kate's home began to shift, not with grand gestures or promises, but with the smallest habits. Kate had started teaching Lily to write. They used a small chalkboard in the sunroom, where light poured in every afternoon, and Lily's giggles echoed against the glass walls. She held the chalk with intense concentration, the tip of her tongue slightly out, as she painstakingly formed big, clumsy letters. "M-O-M-M-Y." Lily read aloud one day, her voice soft with surprise. "It's Mommy." Lily grinned. "That's you." Kate blinked, caught off guard. Then she smiled, though her smile trembled slightly. "Yes, I guess it is." Down the hall, David had overheard the conversation. He didn't interrupt. He just leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, a silent storm of emotion passing through his eyes. That evening, while doing dishes, David watched Lily climb into Kate's lap and demand a bedtime story. It was a ritual that once belonged only to him. He slowly dried his hands, his heart heavier than he cared to admit. Kate was so careful. She never overstepped. She always glanced in David's direction, seeking unspoken permission before holding Lily's hand too long or kissing her forehead. But feelings didn't ask permission. She had found a rhythm with Lily, and unintentionally, she had found a rhythm with David too. He wasn't like the men in her world. No expensive cufflinks, no corporate arrogance, just a man who could build a swing set from nothing, who remembered how Lily liked her oatmeal, who fixed a leaky faucet without making a performance of it. And he was kind, quiet, but profoundly kind. Still, Kate could feel the weight of something unspoken, growing heavier between them. The breaking point arrived on a cool Saturday afternoon. Kate had taken Lily to the park, while David stayed behind to finish fixing a shelf in the garage. They had laughed freely watching a puppet show, shared ice cream, and picked daisies on a hillside near the duck pond. They were lying on the grass when Lily unexpectedly turned her head and asked, "Mommy, Kathy?" Kate turned, brushing a golden strand of hair from the little girl's forehead. "Yes, my love." Lily's eyes were wide earnest. "If I have Mommy Kathy now, do I still need a daddy?" Time stopped. Kate froze, every muscle rigid. She held her breath. Her heart pounded too hard in her chest. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Finally, she managed to get out, "You will always need your daddy, Lily. Daddy is your home." Lily nodded, satisfied, and turned back to plucking petals. But Kate couldn't escape the question. That night, she didn't come home for dinner. She left a message saying something urgent had come up. She needed space. David read it twice, then sat at the kitchen table long after Lily was sound asleep. Kate sat alone in her car, parked a block from her apartment, hands clenched on the steering wheel, her gaze unfocused. She had thought the hardest part of letting someone into her life would be fear. But it wasn't. It was guilt. What if the love she was beginning to feel for Lily was a thief in disguise? What if every smile, every bedtime kiss was slowly stealing something from David? Something she had no right to take? And what if her feelings for David weren't as one-sided as she had tried to believe? That thought frightened her more than any boardroom failure. "I didn't mean to steal her from you," she whispered into the silent space. But the silence didn't answer. It only asked one thing. What will you do with this love now that it's real? And for the first time in a long, long time, Catherine Sterling had no answer. Kate disappeared. Not in a dramatic, stormy way or with a grand exit. She simply stopped calling, stopped texting. There were no more visits, no more shared dinners or chalkboard lessons, just silence. David knew immediately. He didn't question it. He didn't talk about it with Lily, who asked every day, "Is Mommy Kathy coming?" He just smiled gently, brushed her hair behind her ear, and said, "Maybe tomorrow." But the tomorrows stretched on, and so David poured himself into being everything Lily needed. He cooked her favorite soups, read her 3 stories instead of 1, and carved her a new toy rabbit from soft pine. He smiled wider, spoke louder. But at night, when she was asleep, he would sit alone at the kitchen table, his hands tightly clasped, and wonder what he had done wrong. Then the storm hit. It began with just a faint cough, a tickle in Lily's chest. By bedtime, her forehead was burning with fever. David stayed awake all night with her, holding her tiny body to his chest, whispering lullabies, even as fear deeply infiltrated every fiber of his being. By morning, her fever was worse. Her lips were parched, her skin cold. Outside, heavy snow fell white and blinding. He bundled her up, wrapping her in every warm piece of clothing they owned, then carried her walking through the biting wind to the nearest urgent care center. Inside, the waiting room was empty. A nurse looked at Lily and quickly ushered them in. But after a dose of medicine and hours of waiting, her fever barely subsided. David sat by the hospital bed, his hands trembling. Lily whimpered in her sleep, her small face flushed and restless. The phone was in his hand before he even realized it. He hesitated, then pressed her name. It rang only once. 20 minutes later, Kate pushed open the hospital doors, her coat still dusted with snow. She said nothing. She just walked straight to Lily's bedside and knelt. David looked up at her. He hadn't seen her in weeks, yet she was there. "Her fever won't break," he said, his voice barely audible. "I know," Kate replied. She took Lily's small hand in hers and placed a cool cloth on her forehead. "It'll be okay, my love. Mommy's here." David turned away for a moment, his chest tightening. For the next few hours, they stayed there together. Kate refused to leave Lily's side. She hummed lullabies. She whispered words of comfort. And when Lily finally calmed, sinking into a deeper, more peaceful sleep, her small body curled in Kate's arms, as if that were where she belonged. David stood a few steps away, watching them. He had never seen Lily look so peaceful since the day she was left on his doorstep. He slowly walked closer, then sat down beside them. Lily's head rested on Kate's shoulder. Kate looked up at him, and in that moment the weariness in both their eyes dissolved. "I was afraid she would love you more," David said softly, his voice hoarse. Kate stared at him, holding her breath too. "But now," he continued, "I know. Maybe she needs both of us." Kate reached out and took his hand. She didn't need words. Her fingers said it all as they squeezed his. That night, in the gentle hum of the quiet hospital corridors, something between them mended. Not everything, not yet, but enough. And for the first time in weeks, neither of them felt alone. In the small world of the hospital room, time seemed to stand still. The steady hum of machines, the distant faint beeps, and Lily's even breath in Kate's arms were all that existed. Kate didn't think about postponed meetings, unanswered emails, or piles of files waiting to be processed. Her mind was now only on Lily, small and fragile. She gently stroked the child's damp hair, feeling Lily's weak warmth radiating into her. Every lullaby she hummed, every fairy tale she whispered, wasn't a pretense, but genuine emotions rising from the depths of her soul, a place she once thought had become hardened. David sat on the extra chair, his gaze fixed on the two most important women in his life. He had once thought he was Lily's sole pillar, all she needed. But now, looking at the scene before him, he realized a simple yet powerful truth: love isn't a pie to be divided. It's a river that can expand, welcoming more tributaries to become stronger, fuller. He remembered the sleepless nights holding Lily when she was a newborn, the times he wondered if he was good enough, if he could give her a complete life. He had tried his best, doing everything he could. He had learned how to hold a baby, change diapers, warm milk, and read fairy tales in the most clumsy way a man who had never thought of being a father could. He had done it all alone, and he had never felt as vulnerable as he did now, watching Lily writhing in fever. It was that helplessness that made him dial Kate's number, an instinctive, uncalculated act. And she came without a moment's hesitation. Now, watching Kate carefully wipe Lily's forehead, seeing how her calm, elegant hand cradled his daughter's small one, David felt a profound gratitude. It wasn't gratitude for temporary help. It was gratitude for a presence, an addition he didn't know he needed until it appeared. He had once feared Kate would steal Lily from him, but now he only saw healing. Lily stirred faintly, nestling deeper into Kate's embrace. She mumbled softly in her sleep, a tiny name, Mommy. David held his breath. He looked at Kate. She was looking at him too, her eyes deep but no longer rigidly cold. Physical exhaustion had blurred the perfect facade of the CEO, revealing a genuine, vulnerable soul. In that moment of intersection, he felt something being released. "I was afraid she would love you more," David said softly, his voice hoarse, breaking the silence. Kate stared at him, holding her breath too. This statement touched the deepest fear she had tried to bury, the fear that her feelings for Lily were selfish, an act of appropriation. But now, David continued, moving closer, "I know. Maybe she needs both of us." Those words were like a cool breeze soothing Kate's soul. She realized that love isn't a game of snatching, not a pie to be divided. It can be multiplied, shared, and become stronger when more hearts nurture it together. The fear of hurting David, The fear of breaking his small family vanished. The fear that her feelings for him were also unrequited also receded. Kate reached out and took David's calloused hand. She didn't need words. Her fingers, as they squeezed his hand, said it all. Agreement, understanding, commitment. It was an unspoken promise, an acknowledgement that they were ready to build something new together. That night, in the gentle hum of the quiet hospital corridors, amidst their worries about Lily's health, something profound mended between them. Not everything not yet, for old scars remained, and the future was still unknown. But it was enough. Enough for them to feel a strange peace, a sense that they were no longer alone on this path. And for the first time in weeks, neither of them felt lonely. They had found each other in the storm, and the fire of their love had been tested and proven not by absence, but by presence. A year later, snow blanketed the small wooden house on the hill, creating a soft, glittering scene. The air was fresh, the trees rustled in silence, and the chimney puffed a steady stream of smoke into the winter sky. It was a world entirely different from Kate's old life in the glass penthouse towering over the city. A world of cold steel gleaming surfaces and polished loneliness. That life was defined by power, precision, and deadlines. But this home, this small pine cabin and its warmth, was built on quiet joys. Its timbers held laughter in every grain. Its walls echoed bedtime stories, not boardroom commands. The windows were fogged by simmering soup. The scent of cinnamon lingered in every room, and the shelves were overflowing with Lily's drawings and handcrafted wooden toys. Inside, Kate hummed softly as she stirred a bubbling pot of soup. Her golden hair, once perfectly styled, was now piled in a messy bun, a touch of flour on her cheek, and a sparkling warmth in her eyes. David stood beside her at the kitchen counter, carefully carving the final details of a miniature wooden rocking horse. It was for a boy at the local shelter, their latest initiative through the nonprofit they had founded together. Their hands moved in a quiet rhythm, the kind of rhythm shared by people who no longer needed words to understand each other. Their movements were simple, but their hearts beat in unison with a quiet certainty. Lily, now 4 and full of imagination, burst into the kitchen with glitter in her curly hair and paint on her cheeks, waving a crayon drawing in the air as if it were a treasure map. "Mommy, Daddy, look what I made," she shrieked. "It's our house with stars on the roof. It means it's magical." Kate knelt down breathless with laughter and pulled Lily close. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. And you know what, I think you're right. It is magical." David leaned over, brushing a fleck of glitter from Lily's nose with a chuckle. "Definitely our best Christmas ever." They had named their fund One More Day, a name born from a moment when one kind day rewrote the future for 3 strangers. Now it served dozens of single parents and children, providing them with meals, toys, shelter, and most importantly, hope. Because both Kate and David knew how far a small act could go when given with love. After that night at the hospital with Lily and David, something in Kate had permanently changed. The decision to resign as CEO was not an impulsive one, but the result of deep introspection. She had realized that the financial empire she had painstakingly built could not fill the void in her soul. Profit figures could not bring the warmth that Lily's smile or David's understanding gaze could. The transition wasn't easy. Initially, leaving the most powerful position in her career brought a strange sense of loss, as if she were losing a part of her identity. Mornings no longer had packed schedules, no more 5 a.m. conference calls, no more transatlantic flights. Instead, there was peace, even an initial emptiness. But David and Lily filled that void with small, genuine joys. Kate learned to live a different life. She learned to cook, initially with disastrous accidents like burning 5 loaves of bread, as she confessed, but gradually she became more proficient. She found joy in tending to the small garden, in sewing simple outfits for Lily, and in renovating the old wooden house. Stains on her hands, loose strands of hair, and smudges on her clothes were testaments to a real life, not the polished image in Forbes magazine. She no longer felt pressured to be perfect. The comfort of being herself, a woman with flaws, but full of love, had liberated her. After Lily recovered, Kate and David spent a lot of time talking about their future and the future they wanted to build for others. Both had gone through difficult periods and deeply understood the value of one more day, one more chance, one more glimmer of hope. From that, the idea for the One More Day Fund was born. Kate, with her expertise in finance and management, became the one to build the fund's structure and strategy. David, with his practicality, appreciation for life, and ability to connect with those in need, became the heart and soul of the fund. They transformed a part of their wooden house into a small office where Lily's laughter sometimes mingled with serious meetings about budgets and support plans. One More Day didn't just provide food, clothing, or shelter. They focused on giving hope. They organized life skills workshops for single parents, helping them find jobs and manage their finances. They set up a volunteer mentor program where experienced individuals could share and support struggling families. David used his woodworking skills to make toys and small furniture for families, transforming simple materials into meaningful gifts, imbuing each piece of wood with love. Kate, with her extensive network from her old life, lobbied large companies for sponsorship, persuading them to look beyond numbers and recognize the value of investing in the community. There was a special story about a young mother, Maria, with 2 small children who had just lost her job and faced the risk of losing her home. The One More Day Fund helped Maria find a stable part-time job, provided food and clothing for her children, and most importantly, connected Maria with a support group for single mothers. David personally made a small study desk for Maria's eldest son, and Kate often visited, chatting and listening to her confidences. Stories like Maria's motivated Kate and David to work tirelessly. Every time she saw a smile on the face of a child receiving a new toy, or the relief in a mother's eyes when she found a solution for her life, Kate knew she had found her true purpose. Their wooden house was a symphony of warmth and love. The wooden floors creaked under Lily's tiny steps and David's steady strides. The scent of cinnamon and pine always lingered, mingling with the delicious smell of food from the kitchen. The walls were adorned with Lily's crayon drawings, round flowers, houses with chimneys, and simple but joyful stick figures. Every scratch on the floor, every stain on the wall told a story of a life being lived to the fullest. Every day, Kate and David shared all the tasks. Kate might be reading to Lily in the living room while David worked in his small woodworking shop out back. They cooked together, cleaned together, and solved life's small problems together. There was no rigid division of roles, only mutual support and complementarity. Kate learned David's practicality and calmness, while David was inspired by Kate's decisiveness and vision. They formed a perfect pair, not just in their work, but in their lives. In the evenings, after Lily was fast asleep, they often sat by the fireplace, sipping a warm cup of tea or coffee. Their conversations no longer revolved solely around work or Lily. They talked about dreams, hidden fears, the books they read, and plans for the future. David told Kate about the backpacking trips he once dreamed of, about the big woodworking projects he wanted to undertake. Kate shared about the books she had read during her lonely years and about new ideas for the One More Day Fund. Both found absolute comfort and trust in the other. Kate no longer had to wear the mask of a strong female CEO. She could express her vulnerabilities, her sensitivities, and David was always there, listening without judgment. Christmas Eve that year, the atmosphere was more special than ever. After a busy day with the fund's work and preparing a simple but cozy Christmas dinner, Kate and David stepped outside together. Snow was still falling, large, soft flakes covering the world in a magical stillness. Kate stood breathing the cold air, feeling the scent of pine and the freshness of the winter night. She turned to look at the warm yellow light from the house spilling onto the white snow, a peaceful scene she once thought she would never have. David came out a moment later, gently draping a wool scarf around her shoulders. "Still adjusting to country life?" he asked, his voice deep and slightly amused. Kate smiled, her eyes looking up at the starry sky. "I've burned 5 loaves of bread, ruined a birdhouse, and gotten glue in my eyelashes. But I've never been happier." He smiled, then reached into his coat pocket. "I have something for you." She turned towards him, curious, then froze. He held out a small wooden box. It was handcrafted, smooth, and faintly scented of cherry wood. Inside, nestled on black velvet, was a ring carved from the same type of wood. No diamonds, no gold, just a circle of care shaped by his hands and his heart. It was the most rustic, yet most precious ring Kate had ever seen. Every grain of wood seemed to tell a story of resilience, of raw timber, honed into the form of love. It didn't sparkle like the diamonds on engagement rings she had seen in her old world, but it radiated a warm, genuine light coming from simple and enduring things. Kate's breath caught her eyes, looking straight into it. Steady, kind, and full of quiet hope. David knelt on one knee in the snow. The cold no longer mattered. This moment was warm. Snow continued to fall, white flakes settling on his shoulders, on her golden hair like precious gems adorning a sacred moment. Kate felt her heart pound a beat more intense than any merger or million-dollar contract she had ever signed. "You weren't the miracle I prayed for," he said softly, his voice hoarse with emotion. He hadn't prayed for a powerful CEO. He had only prayed for enough to raise his child for peace. But Kate had come bringing a miracle beyond his wildest dreams. "You're the miracle I didn't know I needed." His words were simple but true, echoing in the silent space of the snowy night. "Will you be my wife?" Kate also knelt down, the snow seeping through her jeans. She wrapped her arms around his neck, laughing through tears. Hot tears streamed down her cheeks, mingling with the cold snowflakes. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with joy. "Yes, I will. Let's build this life, imperfect but ours." Inside the house, Lily peeked through the foggy window, her eyes wide with wonder. When she saw them in the snow, she shrieked, "Mommy said yes." Her cheer was clear, echoing throughout the house, carrying with it innocence and pure happiness. The house shone brighter than ever that night, as if the love within had spilled out through every crack and corner. The warm yellow light cast a shimmering halo around them in the snow. And outside, in the stillness of Christmas Eve, under the starry, snowy sky, love had worked its quiet magic. Gentle, tender, forever. It was not just a promise between two adults, but an affirmation of the birth of a complete family.